These tariffs are terrible. Number one, let's be clear, they're a tax. So every tariff is going to be paid for by every consumer in this country, and it's going to be an expense for every business in this country. That's number one. Number two, these tariffs are totally chaotic and creating an immense amount of uncertainty so that businesses don't know what is the tariff from one day to the next. And the least desirable situation for any of our businesses is when there is total uncertainty about what governmental policy is. Mr. President, the challenges to our consumers and to our businesses are universal. Every consumer in every state, every business in every state faces the threat of these higher expenses that go to consumers in this incredible uncertainty that's inflicted on businesses. But my legislation, the Creating Access to Necessary American-Canadian Duty Adjustments Act, the Canada Act, co-sponsored by Leader Schumer, by my colleague Senator Shaheen, Senator Murkowski of Alaska, Senator Kaine, Senator Collins, Senator Markey, and Senator Wyden, focuses special attention on our small businesses. And the reason for that is, as challenging as this is for every business, it's especially so for small businesses. They do not have the margin to deal with these price swings. They don't have the margin to adjust to the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday policy changes. They don't have the margin to be able to absorb a huge hit in their expenses on the basis of whether a shipment that they were awaiting from another country was delivered on Monday or Friday. And that literally is what is happening. Our small businesses are so profoundly important to us in Vermont, and I know that's true in West Virginia. I know it's true in New Hampshire. And we have got to be doing things that help them, and we should not be doing something that really hurts them, and that's these tariffs. The impact to us on Vermont is especially acute in our proximity to Canada. Mr. President, Canada is Vermont's major trading partner, but Vermont is hardly unique. 34 states in our country have as their major trading partner Canada. So we've got to level with the American people, the people we represent. The President is suggesting that these tariffs are nothing but pure revenue for our country. You know what? It is revenue for our country, but it's revenue that is paid for by our consumers and by our businesses. And as Senator Shaheen has so eloquently stated, we have got a serious affordability crisis in this country. People who work hard, who work full-time, cannot afford to pay their bills at the end of the month. Our businesses that are operating with enormous efficiency and who are super concerned about the price consciousness of consumers and are doing everything they can to keep their prices down, but have enough of a profit to keep the lights on and keep people employed. They are overwhelmed by what is happening with these tariffs and how it is inflicting uncertainty and causing them to have layoffs. And you know what? Those small businesses do not have the pricing power that our major businesses have. They can deal with it. They've got market power. And I'm actually on their side because I don't think they should be subject to these horrible tariffs. But what I do have some appreciation for is the fact that the small businesses just don't have that margin, no matter how hard they work, no matter how carefully they plan, no matter how committed their workforce is. If you have this tariff that creates a tsunami of uncertainty and expense, that jeopardizes their ability to hang on. And let me just go through some of the effects on Vermonters that I spoke to. All of us, like Senator Shaheen, visited businesses, talked to real people. And here's what I'm hearing in Vermont. Farmers, they're having to pay already 25% more for fertilizer. By the way, that's not unique to Vermont. That's all over the country. Our dairy farmers, small margin. How do you tell them to pay 25% more? And on August 1st, by the way, it can go up to 35%. Our maple producers. We import a lot of maple syrup from Canada. We produce the most maple syrup in the United States of any state. But we cooperate with them, and it's going to create a distortion of the market and put a lot of pressure on our maple producers. Housing. As Senator Shaheen said, we get lumber from Canada. Housing is incredibly expensive. We all know that. It's true in your state, and it's true in mine. And it's one of the big threats to people having an opportunity to move into the middle class. They can't afford a house. These tariffs are sticking it to our folks in housing. And the National Association of Home Builders is absolutely opposed to these tariffs, and rightly so, because an already expensive house now is going to have a 25 or 35% increase in the cost of lumber. I mean, where is that coming from? How is that fair? How does that make any sense for everyday hardworking people in Vermont and in every state? We're losing jobs from these. Steel and car manufacturers are having layoffs. They're in Michigan, they're in Indiana, they're in Alabama, they're in Minnesota. In my state, Orvis, which is an iconic producer of elegant and exceptional fly rods, has had to lay off workers for the first time in a very, very long time, and it's all totally as a result of these tariffs. You know, small business, I know we all believe this. It's the backbone of our states. And every single one of us on both sides of the aisle, I think, sincerely believes that. But is it really a belief when we give lip service but not action to protect their opportunity to compete? And these tariffs are a killer for them. There's not a small business you can talk to that supports these tariffs and doesn't see it as an existential threat to their well-being. You know, the president on these tariffs, particularly with Canada, we had the United States, Canada, Mexico trade agreement. And that was negotiated by President Trump. And he, in his Trumpian way, bragged about that as the best deal ever. And now he's ripping it up. So what was it? The best deal ever? It actually was working. It gave stability. We had a market from Mexico up through Canada. And now that's getting ripped apart with these arbitrary actions on the part of the administration. So it's all downside here. And, you know, there's a lot of press recently about the president getting a deal here and a deal there. And in the short-term news cycle, that's regarded as a victory. But you know what? When you step back and look at what the deals are, it's a deal to raise the cost to folks in West Virginia, is to raise the cost to folks in Vermont, raise the cost for folks in Oregon, raise the cost for folks in New Hampshire. So, you know, I asked the obvious question, how is that a good deal? Maybe it's a good deal politically for the president, but it's a really bad deal for our small businesses and for our consumers. You know, the other part of this, particularly with Canada, huge tourism industry. About 20 million Canadians come to the U.S., about $20 billion. The folks from Canada, we in Vermont, in New Hampshire, feel very close to them. We feel a social, economic, political connection to them. We really value them. And there's been such an insult to them. I mean, aside from the tariff, the talk about the 51st state, the governor of Canada, that is all really uncalled for and very hurtful and very harmful. And Senator Shaheen and Senator Wyden both led delegations to Canada, where I think they were, on behalf of all of us, expressing the appreciation and respect we have for our Canadian neighbors. And we should not be doing something with these tariffs that shows massive disrespect to them. I just want to end with a few quotes from the Vermonters I spoke to. And by the way, these are Republicans, these are Democrats, they're independents. This is not a deal that relates to whose side you're on in the presidential contest. This is folks who are committed to the community they live in, committed to the employees who work for them, and care about a strong economy and a strong social life for us in Vermont. Our treasurer said small local businesses will be hit very hard. They don't have the ability to find a different supplier and different vendors with the limited flexibility they already have. We had another, a vegetable farmer, small scale. It feels like death by 1,000 cuts. Person in healthcare. Adding a tariff will either lead to drug shortages in the short term or long-term significant price increases. So there's a common sense element here that just seems to escape the United States Senate at times. We're actually pretending that this tariff is not a tax. It is a tax. We're pretending that the constant changing and whimsical nature, the arbitrary nature with which the rate is one thing today and a different thing tomorrow, doesn't have a really disastrous impact on folks who have to make real-world decisions about their ability to produce a product, to meet the obligations of a contract they've entered into, to maintain the stability of their workforce and their supply chain. It's all downside with these tariffs, and these are not targeted. You know, it's a separate question to use a tariff when you've got unfair labor or trade practices as we have from China. And I think all of us here are quite open to the proper and limited use of tariff as a tool. But this notion that tariff is a revenue source and pretending that revenue is not being paid for by our businesses and by our consumers is wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And as this policy gets implemented, we're going to lock in these price increases and further aggravate the affordability challenges that everyday hardworking Americans are feeling more acutely than ever. Mr. President, I yield back.